Women Up Radio, designed to facilitate women's empowerment, improve your career, develop your talents, incorporate your passions, achieve fulfillment and success.
Hello, this is Women Up Radio, supporting Empower Women, and today we're talking about the benefits of flexible working and why it's a win-win for both companies and employees. I'm joined in the studio by my guest, Sarah Broad. She's a coach, speaker, and the founder of Attune Jobs, which is a job site specialising in part-time, job shares, and flexible working for businesses that understand the need to embrace a more agile workplace. So, welcome to the programme, Sarah.
Hi, everybody, and hi to Anna.
So, Sarah, tell me about flexible working. I know many people confuse the difference between flexible working, hot desking, and working from home. Can you outline the differences and tell us what they're most suited to?
There are a number of differences, and each company seems to have their own policy of what is flexible working, what's agile working. But for me, a lot of firms have been doing hot desking for a long time now, and that's where you share the workspace. So it might not be about flexible working, it might just be about sharing the workspace, because a lot of companies that I work for or have worked for do a lot of projects. So they're out of the building quite a lot. So they're at client sites, and so the need to have a permanent desk back in your office is not there anymore. So they would hot desk. So they would move from desk to desk. They would probably have to have a system where you would sign in and book the desk for that week or that day.
Oh, really? They do that where you actually book it rather than just take whatever desk happens to be available?
Yes. That in the firms that I've worked with, and the law firms and the accountancy firms that I know of, you would have to book. You would book generally.
Okay. That's a good idea.
So you would know that you would have a desk, and and you would know where you're going in that day. And most people would try and want to sit with the rest of their teammates when they're in the office. So offices are built differently these days, aren't they? You've got your little hubs for silent working, you've got your hubs for teamwork, and you've got hot desking.
Yes.
So the hot desking. The agile working is what some firms are calling flexible working.
Okay.
But in my mind, agile working is about creating that flexible and productive work environment, which might include hot desking. It might include working in different locations or different offices. It might include working at a client site or working, nationally. I used to work up in Manchester and Birmingham and Southampton, and you would just move around the offices. So that's the agile working, where you move around.
Mm-hmm.
And flexible working for me, which some firms do call agile working. So this is where I always say it's sometimes it's not confusing, but people will call it different things. So you have to go with what your firm calls it and how your firm describes it. But flexible working is things like working from home, which is now quite common, 1 or 2 days a week. It might be flexing your start finish times. It could be a job share, compressed hours, part-time hours, something that's different to the standard working hours. Because for me, agile working, you could still be working your 9 to 5:30, for example, but you might be just working in different locations.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And so what do you think the different ones are most suited to? I mean, are they particularly good for sales teams or marketing or different sectors, different industries, or is it suitable for everybody?
I think flexible working could be done for most jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're a lawyer or an accountant or HR manager, even PAs, I used to work at EY. We had a partner that had a PA. She was moving back to Ireland. He was a very traditional partner, actually. Yeah. But because he loved his PA, she was moving to Ireland. She became a virtual assistant. She became his virtual PA.
Oh, excellent.
Carried on working for him.
Yeah.
And it worked for both parties.
Yeah, that's great.
So, it can be done. It just depends on the mindset of who you're working with, your own mindset, and the team and business.
Yes, yeah. And I know you worked in recruitment and HR and the corporate world for over 20 years, which I think was mostly in professional services.
That's right.
How did flexible working fit in this sector? And how long ago did they start it? And why do you think they started it?
I was at Ernst Young in 2002, but I did work for an outsourcing company before that, and we all worked flexibly. So we had standard hours, but if we did really long hours, we would have a shorter day the next week, or we would do something. So in a way, it was flexible working.
Yeah.
At Ernst Young, I was there in 2002. I worked for a very progressive department, and I would resource the right team for the right project. So due to the nature of the work, where it was located, because it was international and national. And so everyone worked flexibly from a location perspective and offices and times.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the nature of the work, because it was project work, they may need to work long hours.
Yeah.
And so when they were back in the office, they were encouraged to go home early, to leave on time.
Yeah.
And this was more of a well-being issue, because if they were doing really long hours, or for a month or 2 months depending on the project,
yeah.
then when they were back in the office, they would get days off, or they would work shorter days.
Yes. Yeah.
The work, the changes in the workload, which I think's great.
Yes.
It's a give and take with both parties there.
Yeah.
But also at the time, so that was really because of the demands of the business, who dictated that people worked flexibly.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really standardized. It was dependent on the job and the project. But during my time there, they were very progressive and forward thinking about people, retaining talents. And at the time, it was mainly women who were returning from maternity. So we would work very hard at supporting their request to return 3 or 4 days a week, or maybe flexing their start or finish times so that they would work, from 10 till 6 or 8 till 4, to accommodate those pickups. And that was about making sure that those women, predominantly senior women, were coming back to work, and we weren't losing those skills. So we would consider all those requests.
Yeah.
Sometimes we might need to tweak them depending on what team they were in. So we did that for them. As time went on, it would include men.
Yes.
Who requested flexible working. We had people that worked part-time. We had one gentleman who worked compressed hours. And it worked well in that sector, because I think the culture was about output.
Yes.
So it was all part of the performance management process. It was part of the reward process. And it was about output rather than presenteeism.
Yeah. And you said you had someone working compressed hours.
Yes.
When you say compressed hours, you just mean shorter days?
But they did 5 days and 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was quite unusual. Yeah. And it was, this was actually at BDO, but it was quite unusual because they thought there would be a huge intake of others wanting to do it. And that didn't actually happen. And he had his reason for doing it. And so you're obviously able to say why we're allowing him to do compressed hours and why he wanted to have compressed hours. But it's just that ability to take somebody's lifestyle or their choices or things that were happening in his life and make it work, rather than him leaving or getting upset and we're losing all that skill set and all that talent.
Yeah.
I always say it doesn't have to be forever.
That's right, because people's situations evolve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think
but it wasn't just the accountants or the or lawyers that I know of, or even the technical people that were involved when I was at EY. It was people that worked within business support, so your HR, your PAs, who worked flexibly as well. So I had a team of PAs who all wanted to do different hours.
Yes.
So they went away. I said, go away. These are the core hours. You choose with your partner and your team what you want to do, what's going to work best. They came back with their plan. They had a buddying system set up.
Yeah.
They, their partners, the teams, and the business benefited because they were actually there for longer parts of the day. Instead of your 9 to 5:30, we suddenly had 8 till 6:30 covered.
I think it's such a good idea, such a good idea. And particularly when it's done naturally, with everybody talking to each other and, working out what works best for everyone, because not only is it efficient, it also makes a better relationship, and people support each other, so it builds a stronger team.
Exactly.
I'm a strong supporter of anything that's flexible. I think is wonderful, right? So anyway, why did you decide to leave the corporate world and set up Attune Jobs? What inspired you to do that? Because it sounded like you had a good time and you had a good team around you. So what gave you the extra push that made you want to go and set it up?
Well, I took time out after having children, and I had been freelancing, so I made that choice to freelance to fit around the children. And I had my own coaching business, so I was coming across more and more people, mainly women, who were in senior roles who wanted to work flexibly. They were hardworking, talented, excellent, skilled women who wanted to go and work back flexibly and didn't quite know how to do it. So I was coming across more and more people doing that as part of my coaching and HR consulting. And it was just, I thought there was just a way to marry the two. I'd worked in the corporate world, I'd managed flexible working requests, I'd managed flexible working teams. As you know, I'm an advocate for flexible working. So I just thought, well, how is there a way to be able to marry the two? And Attune Jobs was just a natural progression.
Yeah, that sounds great. And so, to summarise about it, what are the benefits of flexible working for both the company and for the employee? What would you say are the key points that really make it such a good idea for them?
Well, I think there's lots of benefits. I mean, there is so much research out there to support flexible working. Firms are doing it because it makes them an employer of choice. We know that 70% of businesses are going to adopt mobile working within the next few years. There's so many studies out there doing that. And firms are wanting it to be as part of their employee brand. So they're actively using it in recruitment strategies, inductions, their performance management, their retention policies, their absenteeism, policies to try, because it just benefits all. It makes the firm truly diverse. It's a proven fact that companies with a gender balance management, they achieve higher sales, higher returns on invested capital, there's higher returns on equity. So it makes good business sense. It retains women in senior positions who are more likely to want flexible working, although it's not gender specific, because there are studies out there. My Family Care have done one recently, where 80% of men and 82% of women said they would look for flexible working before joining a new company. There's not a huge difference there.
Oh, really? There's a lot of people who want to do it.
Yes, exactly. And it attracts the top talent, So if people are promoting flexible working at the recruitment stage, it kind of meets the demand of what people are looking for.
Yes, yeah.
So there's lots, it attracts the top talent, it retains people, it, helps employee engagement, the top best 100 firms to work for and the top, list of employees for working families all have businesses in it who are doing flexible working.
Yeah. And so, okay, you and I were obviously both converted that we believe totally that it's a wonderful idea. But out and about, when you're reading of articles and looking through Twitter and things like that, we don't hear much about it compared to some of the other things that you hear in the news, and particularly in HR news and company news. So why do you think we don't hear more about it?
Well, maybe because I am in the business. I think I do hear quite a lot about it. It's quite a hot topic in the UK, but it's such a mixed bag. And I think maybe that's what it is, that people are talking about it, but they're not doing it, in my opinion. So you do have businesses that are offering home working, for example, who can work 1 or 2 days a week from home. So that's the business driving, the need.
Yes.
But, we've got the millennials coming in who are going to take up 50% of the working population by 2020, I think it is, who are wanting to work flexibly.
Yes.
Who cannot afford, for example, to live in the London or some of the big cities, are having to move further out, who want to work from home so they're not having to do all their commuting.
Yeah.
So 1 or 2 days a week, they're not having to do their long commute. We know that flexible working requests are coming from maternity returners, and there are internal requests.
Yes.
So in my view, in the businesses that I'm talking to, people are doing it internally.
Yes.
There's more and more internally, and there are more proactive responses to flexible working rather than just the reactive to reacting to the maternity request. They're actually promoting it. What there's probably not so much of, which maybe you're not hearing, is the external. So firms saying we recruit flexibly and all our jobs are flexible. You've got the Simmons and Simmons out there, the Pinsent Masons, the Ernst Youngs, who promote flexible working. They do it at recruitment stage, right at the very, very beginning. So they're attracting people that may not be confident enough to go to a firm and say, can I work flexibly? Well, here, these firms, you don't need to.
Yes.
Because they're actually saying to people, and they're using it as part of their employee brand.
Okay. Maybe, yes, that might be the difference. And also maybe because a lot of the clients I have are over Europe, and some countries, I think it's not as advanced as in the UK. Or maybe it is, but you just don't hear about it as much.
And I think that's the difference, even in the UK.
Yeah.
Because there's firms that might be doing it internally.
Yeah.
But they're definitely not doing it externally. So it's having that. It's now, making things, policies and procedures, and making them, transparent and open. And the firms that are doing that are being rewarded. I spoke to an HR administrator the other day. She has job shared all her life. That's what she chooses to do.
Yes.
And she's such an inspiration because it can be done clearly, and I get people asking me, how do you do it? But she doesn't want to tell anybody, and her firm doesn't want anybody to know about it because they are worried that people that will want to do it and there'll be an influx. Whereas I think, what a great example.
Yes, exactly. And why not? Because if people want to job share and it gives them more energy, makes them happier, makes them more positive, it's good for everybody.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
You are listening to Anna Letitia Cook at Women Up Radio.
Are there any employment laws or regulations about this? Because I know, again, in Europe, the employment law is quite rigid on all sorts of things, particularly for protecting the employee to the max. So are there any employment laws in the UK about this?
There's the right to request flexible working, which extended in 2014 to include all employees with 26 weeks continuous service. So everybody now has the right to request flexible working, and then part of that will be the employee having to put together their proposal to why they want to work flexibly, and the employer now has to consider that request.
Okay.
They will have to make sure that if they're going to say no, that they have a good business reason to say no. And even though I'm an advocate for flexible working, I do think firms can say no if it's really not going to work for them.
Yes, people need to be realistic, basically. So, okay. And are there any countries that seem to be doing this better than others? Because I know we always hear about the Nordic countries, particularly for gender balance. Do they have countries that are particularly good for flexible working?
I think that's a difficult one for me to answer because we don't recruit globally yet. So I can't really comment. But what I do know is that the Nordic countries, they're doing better in this area because they have a different approach to work. It's not, they work to live not the other way around.
Yes.
And they have different childcare systems and support, which is heavily subsidised. So that's going to make a difference to people being able to work flexibly. Because I think in Britain, there's probably a lot of people that want to work flexibly, but they don't know where to go for those jobs. Yeah. They don't know where those jobs are, or think, how do I go about asking for this? You know, as simple as that.
So do you know what percentage of companies actually do incorporate flexible working these days?
Well, all companies will have to have a flexible working policy because it's law.
Yeah.
So this goes back to my comment earlier about walking the walk. So it's making sure that businesses do what they're supposed to do. So some will do a little tiny bit. They'll just take that request to work flexibly and then look at it and make a decision. And then you'll get other firms who are doing it brilliantly, where they will have a policy in place where managers are allowed to make their own decisions in their teams about how they work flexibly. They'll have training. It's part of their leadership development. Yeah. Managers will have the ability to have, intranet where they can talk about role models and how it's working for them. So it's very broad, I would say, between lots of different companies.
And for a company that's trying to be more proactive and really integrate this properly, are there many obstacles for them? I mean, what are the practical things that they have to think about?
There will be some, and every business is different. There's no point, shoehorning something that works for, a large law firm into a local law firm who doesn't have those facilities. But for those firms that are working successfully, and small, medium and large firms, it's led from the top. It's where partners and directors and managers are open about working part-time. They're open about working flexibly. They're open about the fact that it's not affecting their promotion.
Yeah.
I know partners and directors that got promoted on maternity leave, for example.
Yes.
Their diaries and schedules are open. It's not hidden if they're going to go to leave work early to go and watch a school play, for example.
Yeah.
So it's the trust and openness of the culture of the business, which I think makes it work, and also having engaged managers, because they are quite often seen as the biggest barrier.
Oh, really?
Flexible working, because they're more likely to say no, because they're busy, they can't think. Somebody comes in and goes, I want to do 4 days instead of 5, and they go no. Because they've got to think through, how am I going to manage that lost day? Because at the end of the day, they're running a business.
Yes.
So firms that are doing it well are offering those managers training on how they support those conversations with their team members.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's part of their leadership development programs. Again, they're supporting the managers to support their team. How do they make it work? How do they open their mindset? And for them to understand why it's needed within the business, why it's happening. I met a woman the other day that took a year to change her working hours by 15 minutes.
Really?
Yes, and it was purely manager driven.
Oh, for God's sake.
It was she was in the top 10%, graded within her business.
Yeah.
There was no reason for her to stay on at the end of the day. She was leaving early so that she could pick up her child on time rather than being late all the time. So she was probably losing more than 15 minutes at the end of the day, where she's panicking, trying to make sure that she gets everything done, ready to leave on time. Yeah. And she's now looking for another job.
Well, I don't blame her.
Yeah, so
that's walked out a long time before. Oh, God.
Exactly. So, and the firms that are doing it well embed it in all their practices, from the recruitment stage, straight, right through to, employee surveys and things like that.
Yeah. Are there any employees that don't want to do it? I mean, does everyone want to, or are there some people against it, or are there some situations where it's just too complicated?
I honestly believe that most people want to work standard hours.
Yeah.
They just want the ability to have flexibility every now and again for things like childcare and not for it to be frowned on.
Yes.
Those that want to have flexibility in their lives, so whether that's they're changing their start hours from 9 till 10:30, for example, and finishing at 6:30, they still want it standardised.
Yes.
It's just that they're working 10:30 till 6:30 every day.
Yes.
So in a way, I think, well, I can still work with that. I know when they're working.
Yes.
Or if somebody wants to go from 5 days to 4 days, you know that they want to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Or I know people that do 9 till 2, Monday to Thursday, and all day on a Friday.
Yes.
They're still standard in a way, aren't they? So they are working flexibly, but they know, and you know as the manager when they're working, and you can work with it.
Yeah.
So I don't think so.
And what about the demand for this between men and women? Is it something that's particularly beneficial in demand for women employees, or are there as many men that prefer it? Because I know you mentioned that there's 80% of men were interested and 82% of women. So it seems that it's something that men like it as well. Have you got any views on that or any experience of that?
Yes, women will still take up the majority of childcare until childcare responsibilities are fairly distributed between men and women. So, women will always, not always, hopefully that's not going to be the case, but women tend to do more of the childcare and more of the caring responsibilities, for elderly parents as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So their requests for part-time and flexible working will come more from women. So our sign-ups to Attune Flexible Jobs, 37%. That's 37% of our job seekers are men.
Yes.
And I think that's for a number of reasons, because more men are doing childcare responsibilities.
Yeah.
There's an increase in single fatherhood. So they have to take more flexible working. The caring for elderly parents, our culture and our ways of doing things, are different.
Yes.
And we have just come across a number of men who don't want to work full time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they are, I've got one gentleman who wants to swim the channel.
Yes.
So he's flexing his hours so that he can go and do his training.
That's good. Yeah.
There's another one that's writing a book. I knew a partner back in my EY days, actually, who worked flexibly over the year because he was training for his Everest walk. He walked to the top of Everest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was flexible working over the year because it was done by months in a way.
I think
there are firms out there that do it really well.
Yeah. No, it's good. Okay, so if an employee or a manager wants to implement this, if they want to do it for themselves or for a member of their team, how would you recommend they approach the HR department or the powers that be to request it? What would be a good way of approaching it?
I always advise people that are wanting flexible working that you must put yourself into your manager or your team's shoes. Don't just think about what you want and what's going to work best for you, because whatever you do will impact the team, the manager, and the business. You will want to make sure that all their potential concerns are addressed in your proposal. So that's putting yourself into their shoes. So if you want to reduce your days from 5 to 4, for example, who's going to pick up that workload that you're now unable to do?
Yeah.
And as part of the plan, you need to say who is going to pick up that workload, or how you're going to work around those tasks that are not going to be delivered. Or if you're a PA or somebody that wants to start work at 10 to drop the kids off to nursery and you're missing that hour, how can you make up that hour? Is it an important hour? Could you be doing stuff on the train or in the evening when the kids are off in bed? Just think about how it's going to impact the business. That's what I would always advise people.
Yeah.
And because as soon as you have that meeting, that manager or that HR person will just go, well, how are we going to manage this?
Yeah.
And in a way, if you've already done the work for them, they are more likely to say yes.
Yeah, good.
And also, at the end of the day, you can offer trial periods. So people that I have met and made it work, they do exactly what I've just said, but they also then offer a trial period. Let's do it for 3 months.
Yeah.
And tweak it and have a conversation about how we then take it forward.
That's a very good idea. And so if then the manager or the HR department say yes, what are then the keys to making it succeed?
I think it's, again, relying on the person that's want that flexibility, is to have that flexibility. Mm-hmm. So for them to not just think about how it's impacting them, it's about how it impacts everybody. I think it's just having that openness. Again, I spoke about it earlier. The businesses that are doing it really well, they're open about what they're doing. Don't be apologetic and try and sneak out the door at 5 o'clock and hope nobody notices you. Because you might be in at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
So be open about what you're doing. Your manager's obviously allowed it. The HR department's obviously allowing it. Mm-hmm. So be open about what you're doing and how it's working. And if you need help, to ask for it and do it very early on in the trial period or in the period, or throughout your contract. Do it quite early. Notice the problems early.
Yeah.
A lot of advice that I've had from people is that you want to still be able to deliver. So this then comes down to productivity and your outputs.
Yes.
And you want to make sure that you're still delivering on everything that you're choosing to do. So you need to make sure that you're able to be organised. You need to make sure that you know when the deadlines are, and to make sure that your work's being covered.
Yes. So it's just basically be sure that you are as productive as you would be, and as efficient and as positive.
Exactly. Yeah. And things do go wrong. I spoke to a woman the other day who works 9 till 2 for a big accountancy firm, and then she has days that she works from home. Mm-hmm. And she's finding she's doing more and more hours in the evening.
Oh, really?
So we had a conversation, which was, go back to your business and your manager and go and talk about, I can't fit this work into the hours that I'm doing. How do we make this work that's going to work for you? I'm not being stressed.
Yes.
And so that's what she's done. She's gone back and they've rearranged some of the projects that she was working on. So if you're going to keep taking it on and on, trying to prove that I have to do all this work in these set hours, even though you're now doing half the hours, managers will go, okay, keep doing it. Yeah. But you have to also think about yourself. So that's an example where you would be thinking about yourself. Hang on a minute, I'm now doing a 40, 50 hour week when I'm only being paid for 30 hours.
Yeah.
How do I go back and approach this topic with my manager to make this work for both of us?
Yeah, I know. I've had a couple of clients in France who, what they've done is they've changed from doing a 5-day week to a 4-day week, which means they're paid for doing 4 days instead of 5. So their contract has actually changed to a part-time contract. But to get the company to allow them to move from a 5-day to a 4-day, they're expected to do the same amount of work. And maybe because I have a different mentality, to me that's not actually changing, that's just giving yourself a problem. Because the couple of people I'm thinking of, they were doing it because they just felt tired, they wanted to have a better quality of life, they wanted to be less stressed, etc. So that's why they wanted to do a day less. And they were ending up doing exactly the same, but squeezing it all into 4 days, feeling even more stressed because they didn't know if they could do it in 4 days. And the company was giving them grief because they weren't there to answer the questions on the day that they were at home or out of the office or whatever. For me, that way of doing it wasn't a good idea. And I don't think the company was embracing it with a positive attitude. I think they were trying to be difficult because they didn't want other people to follow the example.
Exactly. And there are always those cases.
And it's such a shame.
It is. I mean, I would go back and say, right, well, I'm doing 5 days and 4, so I want to be paid for the 5 days.
Yeah.
That's one option.
Yes. Well, I have another client actually who's the perfect example of, you call it compressed hours.
Yes.
That she does 5 days work in 4 days, but she gets paid for the 5 days. And what they've done is they've put the whole company onto that system. So everyone is doing 5 days, but in 4 days, and all being paid for 5 days. They love it, absolutely love it, and it works so well.
And what's is the outcome for that business? Everyone's engaged.
Yep.
They retain their talent.
Yep.
They probably recruit the best talent because they want to work for a company like that.
Yep.
They're all productive because they're feeling happy and valued.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many reasons for doing it when it works well like that.
I mean,
they're tired from the top, isn't it? Saying
yes,
this is what we're
exactly.
going to do and we're going to embrace it.
I mean, they're tired at the end of the day, obviously, because they start at 8 and finish, I don't know, whatever. They squeeze the extra hours in, so they're doing 3 hours extra or something, or 2 hours extra. I don't know, my maths is useless.
2 hours extra, yeah.
Whatever the hours extra are, they're doing it. But for them, the benefit is they've got either Monday or Friday, because they try to arrange it so that it's either the Monday or the Friday that people aren't working, so they get a long weekend every weekend, and they just feel so good because they can do things, they can relax, they can have fun, they can, they've got 3 days each week to do their sport or their shopping or their family or travel or whatever, and they just go into work energized, even if they're doing longer hours, because they know they've got this long weekend every weekend.
Yeah, so it's good, it's a good thing to do, and that might not work for every business, but what it is showing to me is that's what's working for that business.
Yes.
Everyone's embracing it.
Yeah.
And everyone's getting benefits from it.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I personally don't think that flexible working has to be exactly the same for every business. It can't, and it doesn't, because everybody at the end of the day, each business is different. They will have different objectives, different deadlines. There's one firm I was speaking to the other day, they're all in on a Friday. They have to all be in on a Friday because all their deals finish by Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
So they need everybody in, but they can work flexibly Monday to Thursday, when they want, how they want, as long as they deliver, but they have to be in on Friday. That's what works for that business.
Yes, no, it's good. Okay, so any last tips? Have you got any tips for how people can make it effective, whether it's the companies or the employees? What can they do to improve their options?
I think communication is key. As I said before, it's not one size fits all. Think about your